Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:30. We are meeting in the lower theater. This is the meeting of the joint board with Bellows Falls Village, Saxon River Village, and the town of Rockingham. There's a Zoom link posted. So that being said, I will call the meeting to order. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of November 29, 2022. They're in your packet. Take a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes of November 28th, 29.
And a second.
Sorry.
Motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of November 29, 2022. Is there any corrections, additions, omissions, deletions? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters or pressing matters that will require ratification at future meeting. I have none, Scott.
No addition, just one
Yep.
alteration for tonight, Peter. The 37 Main Street project update. Amy asked if she could move that to a May meeting, so we will not have a presentation on that tonight. So that's the second item on your agenda.
Stole my thunder on that one, but that's okay.
Alrighty.
You're entitled.
Sorry about that.
Didn't you say that the Ridgeway report was being moved as well?
Yeah, it's the whole thing. That's what you just said.
No, Ludwig is a separate report,
No, that's separate.
correct.
Okay, you're talking about item number 2.
37 Main, correct.
That's moved to May.
Do we have the Ridgewood report? Yes.
It's in your packet.
Yep. we got that.
Okay, they are here. All right, so if you would go up the front so they can hear you on the.
And I do have one more handout that we were going to pull up on the screen, but since you're having technical difficulties, I think Gary's going to make a few quick copies. But what you have in your hand or in your packet, the Ridgeway Group, just to step back a little bit, we were here several months ago talking to you about housing needs assessment, the Vermont housing needs assessment. We broke that down into Windham County and then into the town of Rockingham. And last time we met with you, we discussed some tax yield per acre information, just looking at how much revenue is the town getting from certain from properties and what are we missing. And the Ridgeway Group in January took a walking tour with the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust around several sections of the town, just to talk about some investments that have gone into some homes and rental properties in the area. Obviously, rental housing inspections have been something that have been on your agendas and something that's coming. And obviously a concern is the condition of rental properties in our town. So we were interested in meeting with Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust and their different grant and loan programs and seeing what that's done for the village. So that handout that you have, and Gary's going to give you an additional handout, but what you have is just a list and location of properties and the program that they were involved in and how much money was put into, or how much money was granted, how much money was loaned or granted to the building owner. And then there's an assumption of how much revenue that generated for the local townspeople in terms of local contractors and local stores that products were purchased in. So the handout that you're getting now is just a little bit more of that information and condensed, if you will. So Green Mountain Home Repair is a program that Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust has for single-family homes to fix up your property if there's some health and safety concerns. They also do have a $2,500 grant for 2 to 4 unit buildings, again, for some health and safety concerns being brought up to code. Rockingham Rental Rehab Program was a $5,000 grant for multifamily building owners, I think also for under 4 units and under. And then Rehousing Recovery Program and VHIP, it's transitioned into VHIP. It started as a rehousing recovery program kind of at the beginning of COVID, where $30,000 was given as a grant to building owners that had a vacant unit, and it was intended to bring that unit online. There are several stipulations about the rent had to be kept at the HUD level for 5 years as well. So there's some other stipulations, but it was a pretty low barrier to entry of getting that grant money. That has transitioned into the VHIP program where it can be as much as $50,000 now, depending on the size of the apartment. But still, it's geared towards getting vacant units online since there's such a housing shortage. So this graph really shows that there's about $330,000 since, what was it, June of 2020, I think is on your sheet. So in the last few years, $330,000 was invested into properties in the community. And that's just what grant money or low interest loan money was given. That is not the total amount invested in these properties. One of those properties, I can tell you from personal experience, it's showing on your sheet as a $30,000 investment. It was well over $100,000 that was put into that building. But Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, this is just what money they gave out and how that impacted our town. So it very easily could be $600,000, $800,000 that was invested into properties in the area in the last couple of years. And by their assumptions, this would have been roughly $260,000 that came back to the community by hiring contractors, buying products at J&H Hardware or other local establishments. And again, that could be as much as $500,000 that came in. So that was a real eye-opener to our group to say, man, if that doesn't show you need and desire for investing into our buildings in town that need help, I don't know what is. So it's a good sign. I think if there's any other programs, part of my interest in bringing this to this group is we should all be thinking creatively, not just individual groups, but collectively, how can we get more funding? How can we have even just, in our little village or town, just a fund? Some of these $5,000 can go a long way to make a building safer for our people to live in. A couple other things that we saw on the walk. You could drive or walk down a neighborhood, drive down a neighborhood, and you see a few buildings that look really nice, and you see one or two that are really struggling. And they could be struggling just because the homeowner, it may not be financial, it may be physical. And it may be they can't find anybody to actually do the work. If the project's just way too small, it could be a railing that has fallen off. It could be a porch post that's rotted. So can we find ways to have our neighbors collectively come together, and can we give them some incentive to help out your neighbor? And that would go a long way, and I think it would expand, and then it goes to the next neighborhood. So we just saw an opportunity that we could bring people together in the community on their street and help each other out. And then the other thing that we noticed were empty lots. And what really stood out to us was there's a potential there. And the lot could have been empty because a building burned or it had to get torn down because it deteriorated too much. And it may have just been recently vacant, or it's been vacant for decades, but those are tremendous opportunities for housing. And what we would like to do is in May, come back to you with kind of a look at the finances of it. Like, how does it impact the town and the community? So if a building gets torn down, historically, it's probably been an abutting neighbor that's bought it up and kept it undeveloped. And the tax money could have gone from $3,000 a year to the town to $30 a year to the town. So over a 10-year period, that's a substantial amount of money. So it makes sense for us to develop it, not just because we're in a housing shortage, but it's tax season. So we need to start thinking about whether we're losing money every single year in perpetuity because we're not allowing. Some of it's from a zoning perspective. Some of it's just because we're allowing people to buy up lots and let them stay empty. So we're hoping to be able to come back to you in May, give you a little more information and insight into that. But we just wanted to let you know that some great things are happening in town. If you followed Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust and what they're doing some great things. And just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you missed it. So thank you.
I have a
Question?
I
Yeah.
have a question. My question is, the dollar amount you mentioned through the different programs. You mean, it's per unit, right? So if they have a four apartment building, it's 4 units in one building, and the like C3000 is like times 4. They doing all of them or just as the units they're doing? How's that working?
It's just the units that they're doing. So that sheet that you have from Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, it was, if it says 30,000,
Yep.
that they got the maximum $30,000 for that one unit. If they had 2 units in the building that have been vacant and they needed those funds, it would be
6,
two $30,000 is what's listed
yeah, I
on there,
just
but
want to
the
be clear,
total,
it's not the building per unit.
it's the unit,
Thank you.
yeah. Anything else?
The category purchase.
Yeah, category purchase is Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust also has purchased some buildings to be able, or helped giving grant money for purchase of single-family residences. So
Okay, so-
I didn't include that just because I was looking at more of the multifamily aspect, not the housing purchase.
Right, for example, it says here, just the last one down, it says purchase William Street, 155,000. Was that, does Windsor,
Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust may have purchased that
Bought
building, and then they're likely going to put it into a program where someone could buy it and they get a reduction or a grant for the down payment. And then Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust may end up continuing to own the land, and the building could get sold, but it's always going to be at an affordable price
When it
So-
sells.
when it sells in the
These
future.
are-
Seller shares the
outright
proceeds
purchase.
back to
Seller shares the proceeds back to
Wyndham Windsor.
Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, so the next owner gets a reduced. Yeah.
So based on what you're saying, then there's 12 properties in the village that were purchased during this time frame by.
With help from Wyndham Windsor Housing.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know,
Purchased by them?
I don't know that. I can get that information for you, or whether it was,
Must be a mix.
or whether they granted money
Yeah.
for a first-time home buyer
Right.
to be able to afford the purchase.
Anyone else? Questions? Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, we did skip over the manager's report. Got anything?
Sure, since Kathleen's here, we've been talking a lot about dogs, so Kathleen, you want to give your dog pitch for everyone about renewals for dog licenses?
Oh, you mean it's renewal time?
Yes,
Yeah.
No, I actually am gonna have a contest. I put it on the website. Did you see it?
I did not see it, no.
Betsy helped me with it. So anybody that, that licenses a dog, whether it's a new dog or a renewal, between January 1st and March 19th, I am going to put all the names in a bucket and pull one out, and they'll get a free registration for next year. So we're trying to get people in here and get them registered. You can start registering them anytime after January 1st. They become late after April 1st. So there was an additional fee added on at that point. But they have been down, like they were down, probably, we were down 50 dog registrations last year.
It's cute.
Anything else, Scott?
So the other thing is, just for all the folks, and I'm sure most of you received the email, but just as a reminder, Wyndham Regional is going to host a state ARPA infrastructure resources meeting here with a variety of folks from the state. It's also co-sponsored with Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation. It's in this building from 2:30 to 4 o'clock in this portion of the lower theater. And it's on Monday, February 6th. So it's a good opportunity, hopefully, for folks to get some updates as to some of the state opportunities. And we're certainly looking forward to having that presentation here in our building as well.
Okay, does anyone have any public comments on items not on the agenda?
Yes, I did. Yeah, actually, I'm Paul Reese again, village resident. I thank you guys for all the work you do and stuff, and I just want to bring some things to your light since I got both boards here. Maybe you can consider it, maybe you throw it out. But anyways, I went out to Holtonville and saw my good friend that's deceased, Jimmy Mitchell, and drew some strength from visiting the cemetery, walked through the snow. Well, when I got back, it kind of inspired me to come down here. And under the Bellows Falls Police Department, it talks about transparency, honesty, all that. And I just want to note, in 2019, 2020, there's 3,818 incidents listed in the book. This last year, it dropped to 3,114. The police department has done a good job. There's 704 less incidents. Now, I would say to you, as you look in the budget book, if it's $1,500,000, and I say, okay, it's 1.3 square miles. I want the town to use an open mind. The sheriff department is going to charge Windham County $929,000 to patrol Windham. Should we, ask yourself, the Bellows Falls Police Department is $1.5 million. Should we, I asked the old chief, and he said you could do it. Do you take the village police department off and just put town on it? Don't even ask the taxpayers to vote on it, because it is a town police department. So I think you can patrol all of Rockingham, Saxons River, maybe for $1.5 million. Or do you ask the sheriff's department, can you do it for $920,000? The other thing, as I go on to the next page, you might not like this one. The log book in 2019, 2020 lists every incident that took place. And it says one stolen car. I looked at the log book for this past year. I don't know what I got for my money. When I paid 50 cents for this gum, I got 14 sticks. Last year I paid $1,500,000 for the police department, and it just says 3,400 incidents. What did I get? Was there robberies, murders? I mean, what did I get for my money? Under the log of a stolen car in 2020, I would ask this board, was that the one that Mr. Akuda told me was stolen in the Bellows Falls from the Hetty Green Motel? The town manager, Wendy Harris, says, geez, Paul, I got a report of it stolen, we're looking at it. I would ask this board to ask Chief Bemis. When I went down and saw Corporal Keefe, he said, God, Paul, I ain't heard about it. When I asked, then he sent the chief out and he says, Paul, I ain't heard about no car stolen, but he covers himself, but I'm not saying it wasn't stolen. So you guys got a little work to do on that one, but I'll leave it up to you guys to dig a little deeper. But transparency and honesty is very important. Last, on the Hetty Green Motel, I would say to you guys, I was a third party on that thing there, and nobody sent me paperwork or anything. I might have offered a higher bid than the other, the buyer. Remember, like I said, all parties involved. Why did Judge French in 2020, I believe it was May 9th, seal that case? It's a probate case. Nobody can even look at it. That's kind of funny. So you got some answers to answer to the village taxpayers, not just myself, because I'm actually representing a party of people. And while I'm here, I want to apologize to every single board member. If you had a chance to watch some of the videos, and I spoke to the woman, I am not happy about what I saw, some of the slander, name calling. That has nothing to do with me. All that I'm responsible for today is what I'm asking for information here. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone else? Hearing seeing none, let's continue with the agenda and go down to number 3, tax sale update.
So
Anyone has it?
you have a new form, Peter, if you could pass those around. So we did have one more person come and pay. So there was one more person off the list. Notices, as Peter had mentioned earlier, have gone out. There'll be,
You have more copies? That's not done.
I don't know how many there are there.
This is one for the.
That end of the table, good, yeah.
Which one came off?
So the ones we have in our packet are not accurate at all.
Correct. It was paid, it was paid today.
Which property ID?
I'll have to ask Alyssa, because she just gave me the updated form. I didn't,
Oh, here's some more
right.
Oh,
current ones.
Alyssa, do you remember which one came off, the most recent list?
oh, we're getting the form
Yep,
here.
it was, I don't have the old list, but it was the one last name of Hills.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah, okay. With a pay. Alright.
and obviously we'll have to make adjustments now with your transaction from the BCA from earlier, so we'll do that. And follow up on that as well. And our date, right now, I believe, Alyssa, was the 23rd of February. Is that our published date?
Yes, that's the date of the tax sale, I think at 10 a.m.
So-
And you,
I'm sorry, you're muted again.
did you mute me?
I didn't think so.
You'd like to do that.
Never, I would never. mute.
So the last name on the bottom of the list on the top section, that I believe is getting paid on Thursday, so that will come off. And then the top two on the VHFA applied. We have been contacted by VHFA, and usually when they do that and ask for certain documentation, once we supply it, they send the money. So that's a pretty good chunk that we anticipate getting. We don't know for sure, but we think. That's all I know about that.
Okay.
Anyone got any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to number 4, which is the fire committee update.
Thank you, Liz.
1996 memorandum of agreement update. It's in your packet.
So basically, the fire equipment committee wanted to update just the items that were somewhat to clarify what types of things would be eligible to come back for approval for purchase. So we had gone through a couple of meetings and made some updates. Probably the thing that's the most changed the most since the last time we spoke was on the thermal imaging cameras, because now they used to be fairly expensive, kind of large, somewhat bulky kinds of pieces of equipment. Now they've become sort of portable, almost like your telephone, and the prices have come down dramatically. So the equipment committee felt that it made sense to not just limit it to one per operating department, because quite frankly, they're cheap enough now where you could have multiples, and it made sense. So that was probably the primary change since you've last seen this. So what we're hopeful is if you would have a resolution to approve attachment A, and then we do have a signature page, we could then attach this to your 96 MOA and have this going forward as part of that whole document.
Okay, there is a signature page for this new corrections with the sheets in there, so we need a motion to adopt the new adopted memorandum. That's around here, signed. We don't have an original.
I have one here just that has a signature page. So
No, I got the whole thing.
You need that by the board, Peter? Okay. You need that by the board?
Yeah.
All right, I'll go ahead and make the motion for the Bellows Board of Trustees that we accept and sign the updated memorandum of understanding relating to the fire purchase use and use of fire equipment.
I'll second. Motion made and seconded for the Village of Bellows Falls to adopt the corrected or updated memorandum. Any further questions?
You have to also say attachment A is included,
Oh,
is that
yeah.
something separate?
Okay, I'll amend my motion to include attachment A.
Are we doing this, each municipality doing this, but-
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you asked me to say the questions and we got them. Okay, so hearing nothing further, all those in the village trustees, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right, you're good.
All right, Rockingham Select Board, someone want to make the motion for our part?
I move that the select board approve attachment A of the memorandum of understanding relating to purchase and use of fire equipment.
Wait a second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion, questions? This will be for the Rockingham Select Board only. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries. There is no chair for the Seth Board for trustees of Sac River. Is the vice chair here? Is that you,
I
Matt?
think he's on Zoom.
Yeah, I think-
Want to make a motion, Carl?
So I move that the Village of Saxons River trustees approve attachment A to the memorandum of understanding.
Second.
I second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded by Sac River trustees to adopt the amended MOA with amendment appendix A. All those in favor would say aye.
I,
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries and it's coming around for signature.
so the single document is what we're gonna sign, okay?
Yeah.
We're just coming down to the signature page. I think everyone else got a copy of it in their
Yeah.
packet.
Well, when that comes back, I'll.
Okay, now let's move on to number B, which is the fire services station feasibility study.
So this has
Have your
gone
packet.
through multiple discussions as well with the fire equipment committee and multiple discussions with USDA, and appreciate a lot of help with Gary, and we have a new USDA person, which was able to steer us in a different direction in terms of funding capability. So what we have now for this evening is basically a scope of services, as well as an opportunity to apply through USDA for these rural business development grant funds, which would fund $15,000 of a proposed $30,000 study, with then each of the communities contributing a balance of $5,000 towards the total project cost.
Okay, has anybody had a chance to take a look at this? Any questions on it? Motion to adopt this, so it's already been sent out.
The only thing I think at this point, I believe each of the boards has already at least allocated funds, I think separately under previous board actions, under the previous USDA grant process. So those funds are still available. All I would need is just each of the boards to agree so that we would then all be in agreement that this would be the way forward and that we would be applying in this funding round, which is in February. So that's really all I needed, Peter.
Okay, and for the select board has approved their allocation of 5,000 amount.
I know that the village of Bellows Falls did allocate a contribution, I believe it was $5,000.
Right.
And that's the Sac River.
Saxons River allocated 5,000.
Okay,
So we
all
have
in
to-
agreement, so can hopefully go through and
Move forward.
finally, equipment replacement schedule.
Okay, so this is a little bit of change since the last time you looked at this, and it's changed for a couple of reasons. If you look under Saxons River in 2023, they did allocate money from their ARPA funding to help update their 1992 rescue vehicle. So that is one item that you'll notice it's changed. As well as Rockingham, you'll notice engine one, there's $125,000 expenditure, which is a proposed ARPA allocation in this current year to help offset the cost of replacement of that engine. The equipment committee asked to take a look at the possibility of buying a new chassis and just refurbishing the existing unit to see if it was cheaper. And the fire chief went out, and I appreciate Kevin working with these companies that do this type of work. And actually the prices came back comparable to a brand new replacement vehicle, which was very eye-opening to the members of the equipment committee. We thought for sure there'd be substantial savings. But in fact, it really was a brand new quote of the exact same type of engine. Bumper tanker was about a little over 500,000 in our estimate for the chassis, and then all the replacement work was in the neighborhood of $500,000. So it made no sense because you weren't going to get the full useful life approaching it in that way. So we did make some changes in this sheet to show that to the boards, as well as you can see, the future years is where things start to get very interesting, which will be part of the discussions with our feasibility study. as you can see, well over $1 million of expenditures in the second half of this decade. And then over $2 million worth of potential replacement expenditures post 2030. So there's large decisions to be made in terms of lots of operational issues with the three departments. So I'm hopeful that the information that we get back from the study will help us make at least recommendations that the boards will then have to take under consideration as we go forward with these, larger obligations.
Look, anybody have any questions?
I got one.
Yeah, go ahead, wait.
I'm just, so we're Saxon River, I think it's great that they are spending their ARPA money for the truck that they want to replace, but we have an agreement that we just signed, re-signed, that says the town will buy all equipment, including fire apparatus. So I just personally think if we have a policy that says what we're gonna do, that's all how to be handled, but.
And that's to Saxon.
The unfortunate part of that is that they made that decision before we updated our MOA.
Well, we were still operating on the old policy.
Right. But correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, isn't that, Saxon River owns that truck?
Yeah, town of Rockingham doesn't own that.
Doesn't own anything.
Right,
So that's.
They own the other two, so.
right. I know, that's the only one.
And given what we've been going through in that committee meeting is, looking at the money of it, it's just that two-wheel drive 1992 rescue truck isn't going to be replaced in the next 10 years.
Right. And then my only other thought to that is, looking at the taxpayers as a whole, but to me, it would make more sense to not purchase anything that are questionable until such time that study's done and tells us how many fire trucks we need in town.
We're not purchasing a fire truck.
Well, apparatus, fire vehicle, big vehicles. That's just my opinion.
No, that's fine. Anyone else?
Well,
have
just
any-
to follow up on that, this rescue truck, I think that's the second one that they've had.
Yeah.
None of that money's come from the town of Rockingham.
Right.
It's always, and it hasn't come from the village of Saxon River. They went out and they found money and on the first donations, and because the need was there and the town of Rockingham wasn't supplying it, so.
Right.
I think it's a plus all the way around. Town of Rockingham doesn't own it, so they're not liable for it.
My question was, do we have any anticipation of how long the study will take to get done? Will it be completed in 2023?
Most of the firms that we've at least talked to preliminarily, like the people that took on the EMS project down in Brattleboro, had that work done in 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months.
And so I don't think it's crazy to assume that we would be in that same timeframe. We have to obviously advertise with some folks and see what kind of responses we get. So we've got to go through the process with USDA as well. So there'll be a little bit of time between now and when you'll actually get some sort of report.
All right, anyone else on the equipment replacement schedule? Seeing none, let's move along to the public safety services discussion. There's a letter in the packet there from the sheriff's department.
So if anybody's interested, we will have a Zoom link up on the 9th of February for this discussion that the sheriff is undertaking for regional policing and his, you can see he has an agenda here to go through that relates to how the sheriff's office is looking at some of these issues. So we will be here. If you want to come to the third floor, we'll have it up on Zoom so that you don't necessarily have to go to the Vermont EMS Academy in Newfane if you don't want to go in person. But that's just one piece of the discussion. I think the other piece of the discussion is we are, at least on a town of Rockingham warning, asking the taxpayers to vote on a specific article that would start a contract relationship with the sheriff for police services in Rockingham. So that's on the current warning. It'll be part of the discussion at town meeting, and then ultimately, we'll see where we go from that point. So.
Okay, any questions?
I've got a question about the article of policing in the town of Rockingham. I certainly have a question about that. This is probably not the.
Well, you can throw it on the table now.
Well, I think
We're on the town meeting.
Well, let me put it this way. I'd like to propose an article for the town warrant that the town of Rockingham provide policing service for the village of Bellows Falls.
Well, it's,
As you know, we spend over $1 million. Paul's number was a little bit off. Over $1 million that is paid for policing and all paid for by the residents of Bellows Falls, who are also taxpayers in the town of Rockingham. And as a Bellows Falls resident, as a Bellows Falls trustee, I'm satisfied with that arrangement. Okay, I've heard, I know there was different attempts to merge the village and the town that were defeated. I know they were defeated mainly because the people in Rockingham didn't want to pay for the policing that Bellows Falls requires. But by the same token, I think it's unfair that you would be asking the residents of Bellows Falls to contribute to this policing in rural Rockingham. I would think that unless, of course, the article says that the people affected by this would be paying the tab, that it wouldn't be passed on to all of the taxpayers in the town of Rockingham.
okay, 2 points to that. Number one, the town warning's already been made for this year, so if you're gonna try that.
No, I'm not.
No, but if you're trying to get tax, it would have to be made for the next following year. And I agree with your comment, because every year this has been brought up, it's been voted down, that because of that same reason you said, Rockingham does not want police up there in the area, but this is put on because of the cries of help from Barnesville, basically. That's
Well,
what
but
it's
so that part is still
We
paid
did,
for.
we did approach that effect and got some real eye openers from some of the people, the residents that attended our meeting. They just kind of rolls their eyes at what might cost them, and they really didn't want to do it. So maybe Sue is sitting over there, she can probably answer. You know,
Well, I mean, what I could also say in response to that is the residents of rural Rockingham are paying for buildings in the village of Bellows Falls to be torn down because a fire is taking place and people have abandoned them. So we see this as public safety. We support tearing down the buildings that we don't want anyone here to get hurt, but we're paying for that at a much higher rate than the $6,000 that and it's not just
We're
Barnesville.
paying every penny that the Rockingham people are paying for any of those types of things.
Exactly, and you would be paying for, anyone else would be paying for, we see this as public safety, this is an additional
Well,
public
how about
safety.
pay public safety in Bellows Falls? Are you willing to support an article next year to provide policing to the
An
village of
article
Bellows
can go
Falls?
on, it's up to the residents of Rockingham to decide if they want to.
No, I'm talking about this select board. I mean, you live in rural Rockingham, you and Rick. Would you be supportive of that? I mean, the trustees have the responsibility now of managing the police department here, but we don't need to run the police department. We'd be happy to have the town provide that service for us. I would, like I say, I would like to know. that
There would have to be a
you folks-
discussion about whether, are they going to patrol rural Rockingham? Or are they going to, so, I mean, there's a lot of things that can be
Point
discussed.
of order, I'm gonna cut this discussion off because it's gonna get further involved at town meeting, so.
Yeah.
We've thrown it on the table, we've got a couple of objections and positive, so I think we should reserve the rest of the discussion for town meeting in March, so let's call that done, unless there's other statements on the issue of the meeting that's gonna take place on the 9th. Anybody wants to attend, as Scott said, we're gonna do a Zoom meeting upstairs or downstairs, I don't know where.
They'll be on the third floor.
Yeah. But it'll be done, whoever wants to sit on it now. All right, number 6, the declaration of inclusion update. I'm gonna throw this to Debbie, so you can.
This is what Amy had wanted this on the agenda, but she's not here this evening. You'll see that there's on this side of the table, there are copies from League of Cities and Towns for the Justice, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Resources. as part of the toolkit that's available now, that the committee that I work on, has developed, and VLCT is supporting with all of their efforts. And, it's just beginning conversation. We've done the declaration of inclusion. There's also in your packet a letter from, email to the manager from Al, Wakefield, who I work with on the committee, who's very happy to see that we've done the inclusion and like to move forward. So what Amy would like to have, us to have a discussion about creating a committee. So she's not here for that. However, this paperwork here would lead you to the website so you can do more inspection of it. For instance, the Putney Equity is the closest one to us. Putney's Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee is there. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We can read all the things in the toolkit and make the decisions that work best for our community. So what I would suggest is that we do this and come back in our next joint board meeting if individual boards don't want to discuss it at that point.
What does the committee do?
The committee helps to examine things that we've done internally and externally, some of them like the personnel rules that are handled here and how hiring is processed. That's one of the things that in order to provide better inclusion of different diverse groups, we might want to consider some kind of process to review how that happens in order to make sure that we advertise in appropriate locations where better diversity is available to get better candidacy through that. And I'm not saying we still pick the best candidate, that's what happens, but we want to be more inclusive. And there are some places that some diverse groups do not go to look for jobs and so on and so forth. That's just one place. The ways we put out our materials, how welcoming we are, all of those kinds of things are available in the toolkit that we can use that other communities are already doing. So a committee would do basically all the legwork on that and bring recommendations back to the boards.
So if the committee is formed on the 31st, it would be a matter of coming up with a charge for the committee, what they're actually going to do. So.
And if you go to these different towns, you'll see that they have those already. They've already done them and signed them, and we can tailor ones that work for us when we're ready to do that. And
The
then
committee is just made up of citizens, right?
citizen, well, yeah, board members and
Usually
citizens.
the
Right.
board member from
Each board
and
makes
then
sense.
members of the public at large. So. Okay, any other questions?
So we are good with bringing you back in May. That's our next tri-board meeting, next joint board meeting.
Nominate Deborah.
What's that?
Oh, no, okay. I was gonna nominate you to the committee.
No, we're not there yet.
Oh, all right,
Okay.
okay.
Don't let me do everything. I'm good with you doing some of that.
Hey, number 7, part-time sick time policy. I'll throw that to Scott because there's a
Sure.
evidently change in the state regs.
So 21 VSA 41 through 46 updated the Vermont earned sick time laws, which is wonderful. It's great reading if you'd like. I did give you some lovely frequently asked questions and it's really great. So I hope that you dug right in it because it was a lot of fun going through it. But what it meant was we had to make some changes to our existing policy, especially as it relates to how sick leave accruals are recorded by both the town and the village, so that we're in compliance with this new earned sick time law. So really all we're asking you to do is to we do have a current policy, but we're asking you to just update it with this new part-time sick leave accrual so that we're in compliance with the Vermont state earned sick time laws.
So do you need a motion from the board to adopt the update?
Yes, please.
Okay, secondly, question, how many people does this affect, if any, because
Depends on the hours that they work.
do
So.
we have anybody that does over 18? I know down there at the recycle is pretty close.
Right, we do. Some people, there will be a few people impacted by this, a couple in the
Based on
theater,
5 hours a day.
a couple in the theater, some
Some
people
of them
in.
come in early and then they leave later because they gotta pick up cleanup, so.
We also have some part-timers in highway that'll potentially be impacted, some part-timers in recreation because of summer hours. So there's some record keeping that we have to go through.
Just so everyone knows.
Correct.
To some cost.
And you've already set your budget, so I don't know if the impact probably isn't that major.
It's not. Because the accruals are really only related to the amount of hours and it's also capped, so it can't be an exorbitant type of additional expense.
Does this have any impact on the labor agreements?
No, because we'll just give this information to them because it is a state law, so they don't have any bargaining responsibility or rights to this. It's just an update to be in compliance.
Okay, so for the select board, I'll take a motion to adopt the updated language for the part-time sick policy.
So moved.
Second. Second, motion made and seconded for select board to approve the update to the personnel policy for part-time sick time. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay.
For the village of Bellows Falls, entertain a motion to adopt this update on part-time sick time.
Motion to approve the updated policy reference part-time sick time
And a
for
second,
Bellows Falls Village.
thank you. And a second.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's okay, Sue. We're good.
It's just habit.
That's okay. Saxon River.
Saxon's over doesn't have an
Oh, that's right, never mind. My fault.
Okay, let's go down to the proposed APRA project update. There's a couple of sheets in your packet, one for the village, one for the town.
Right, so again, since neither budget at this point is official, these are just recommendations. At this point, there are no specific appropriations that are directly spending ARPA funds, but these are the items that have been proposed, and we're still working on a lot of these items from the village are very rough. So this was just a first cut from our first initial budget conversations. And I did not include Saxon River only because we discussed them earlier with $96,000 and their funds for the brush truck, and I believe that's pretty much most of the funds, I think. For
Yeah,
Saxon
there's
River.
some left that would be.
Some minor, I don't think it was much, right, out of your allocation still left, so.
Question, Scott. What is a Sally port?
So a Sally Port is a secured prisoner. So what it is, basically, it's a garage facility so that the vehicles can come in the garage if you have a prisoner, for example, close the door, and then it's secure to be able to take the prisoner directly from a vehicle into our booking area. So it's an officer safety that it's an officer safety issue as well as it's it'll help our equipment last longer because we'll keep it out of the weather. So we'll be able to keep two of our cruisers actually indoors during the winter and during the bad weather, as opposed to idling out in the parking lot or just in the snow.
Yeah, this is where these are just suggested proposals for the funding. It's up to each individual board to make their decisions.
Correct.
So.
Sorry, one more question. The biosolid upgrade grant, that is to do with the water treatment.
Right, so that's where the Class A biosolids now, we have sort of this limited capacity to store material. We'd like to create some sort of system where we could store larger amounts of material so we could run the press more cost effective. And also then people could come, the farmers could come and self-serve, so they could come and basically it'd be a silo system where they could fill up whatever they were going to haul the materials away and then haul it down to their farm for spread.
It's a sewer treatment plant.
Right.
Yeah.
So what it replaces is taking wet sludge and basically hauling it up state to the landfill.
Yeah.
Which is not up in Coventry, which is not going to be a sustainable practice for much longer.
Okay, anybody else? Wait,
Is the town of Rockingham or the Saxon River Village, have they talked about or entertained any funding with the APRA monies for the Gross boiler fund stack?
originally, when we had those meetings with ARPA, that was one of the projects that was voted on that was,
Right.
that should prove to the town and, because we only had $440,000, you got twice that much. We just kind of switched things around. It's up to you guys. You want to fund it, that's fine.
No, I'm wondering if the town or the village of Sac River looked at.
Well,
that was
I
on-
can't answer for Saxon River.
No?
But that was the whole group session we went through with all the stickers and.
Right.
So,
What is it?
So the hospital facility,
Oh,
ROSS is the
Oh, yeah,
acronym
that's
for the
right,
people
yeah.
that operate the hospital, it's Greater Rockingham Area Services. And in order for them to continue to operate the buildings, they have to do a major upgrade, so we're gonna get a biomass boiler, replacing their aging boiler system. And it's a $2 million project in order to do this.
They do have some funding already approved by grants.
They have
I
a
think they're
funding
about
stack,
halfway
this just
there.
helps them with their funding stack to try to get to their $2 million mark.
You
I
were
think
saying
it
that
would
last
be-
meeting, yeah.
I think it would be a good opportunity for the two villages in the town to come together and support that. Just throwing
Since we
it
all
out
use
there.
it,
What's that?
since we all use it,
Everybody.
I mean, not everybody in town.
No, but large share. Just throwing it out there as an
No,
idea.
that's fine, but, you know, as you say, we can see where the town is proposing some of the funds, one's for the replacement of the Rockingham fire vehicle we have, but that's probably gonna be now applied to the purchase of a new truck, and if you remember the fire committee discussing, if we order it now, we're not gonna get it till 25, and at that point, we're discussing if we have any funds that we can scrape up between now and then, out of fund balance or whatever to apply, and then the rest would be a balance of a loan to pay for that truck. And big one, town hall roof project is the new support up above that they're working on now. And Rockingham Meeting House, if anybody watched that presentation, you can see they got rot inside the building and everything. So this is just a part of a match. There's also 125,000 on the town warning for town meeting to come up with that. Added to that, they have to have some kind of $20,000. In other words, we have to have a grant already from the government on Save American Treasures grant of 360,000, but it's a 1-for-1 match. So in order to get that match, which has already been granted in our name, we just got to come up with the other half. In between this and there's 120,000 in the Rockingham Meeting House balance too. And I think there leaves about, what, 60,000 or 70,000 left that we gotta find in somebody's pocket to make the match complete. Then
There's some
they
gaps
can
in
get
that
the
funding stack,
foundation
but it's close.
and the worst of the stuff done that needs to be done, the windows and all that stuff. So we'll be on our way, hopefully.
Just another quick note on the meeting house, just FYI, if there's a fire there, we can't get to it anyway because it's not plowed.
By the way,
It's all an issue that comes up every year.
I bring it up every year.
I don't know why they are, but if you plow it, then you're inviting vandalism. Somebody goes, you
I'm
know,
just saying.
If the fire and somebody that works in the highway department have to grab a truck and plow your road up, I guess, I don't know.
Well, I think it's a poor decision. That's
No.
my opinion.
Well, you know, maybe they can work something up with the highway department, that's, you know. We don't, we can't tell them what to do, that's the manager's job. All right, review agenda items for the next meeting. I know we're gonna put DEI committee on there,
Yes.
so we have quite a bit of time to think of
Yep.
ideas, so.
Well, we'll have the Main Street, 37 Main Street project update. We'll have the Red Wave folks, they wanted an update, and we'll have the DEI update. So got a few items already at work.
Yeah.
Property in center of Saxon's River.
Bill Kenny building. Bill Kenny building,
Right.
MSA owns it now. They got it from the guy
they
that,
got for bucks. Oh,
so they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Okay, anybody else can think of anything? All right, let's move to review and approve orders, bills, and warrants. I got them right here, so I'll take a motion for, we can do one motion for both votes, because they got to be signed by all of them, so.
yeah. that's all right.
Motion to approve the orders, bills, and warrants is circulated here tonight for all boards involved.
Do we hear a second?
Second. Yeah.
This will be for Rockingham and, well, the second has their own, so. All those in favor would say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Coming around. Other business, let's start on the end over there. Sue,
That's it, thanks.
Rick,
Nothing.
Al? Bonnie?
Nope.
Matt? Debbie?
It's going to sub-zero temperatures, at the end of the week. It looks like it's getting, maybe getting a little worse Friday and Saturday, so, try to get your ants on early. It's gonna be pretty cold, especially it's not difficult to breathe.
15 below on Friday.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, so take care. Okay, that's it.
Okay. A reminder for our wonderful taxes are due on the 13th of February. Also, there's an ARPA meeting to do with ARPA funding. The state people are gonna be here in the town hall from, on the 6th of February, from 2:30 to 4. So anyone wants to attend and see how you can or can't spend any money or whatever, that's the time to do it. I think that's all I had. Stefan?
We're set, we're all good.
Good?
Good.
Wait.
Thank you.
Just a short update on the union negotiations that happened the first meeting. Deb didn't get invited to that one. She didn't- got left off the list, but we had about 4 union reps show up today trying to impress us and the employees, but they didn't have a proposal from the employees because they only met with the employees an hour before our meeting, so they couldn't have anything, but we did. So our proposal out at them, and the next meeting is the 13th, is it, Scott, I believe? Or the 9th, excuse me, it's the 9th.
I've got that in the
February
calendar.
9th.
Right, and I
Write
got-
that
I
down
got
on your calendar so
I
you
got
can't
it. It's on my
complain.
calendar.
All right.
And the police union we started last week, there we signed
This Brown was.
the ground rules. And that was it, basically that, it said a couple of meetings, so that's all we got accomplished. We have another meeting.
So we'll have a further update to the individual boards as time goes on, and we'll be in executive session, so anyway,
Okay.
until we get something settled.
Oh, yeah,
The
my,
contract, tours June 30th of this year.
June 30th, correct.
Yep. that will get done this time, it'll be nice.
Yeah.
So, Elijah, you have anything? No, Arista, Wade?
No, but
Yeah. All set. Okay, there's no executive session, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
we'll move adjourn.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We're out of here, folks.